We are going to Ithaca, New York for Rob Koll, head wrestling coach at Cornell University. And look in the background, we have the beautiful Cornell wrestling room in the back. How great is that? You're high above it. That's not superimposed, is it?
Yeah, well, unfortunately it is, but it is, that's what it looks like in reality, but it's a lot nicer now that we have the expansion. I just wish we could use it. That would even be nicer. I mean, we got this unbelievable mecca for wrestling, and it's empty. We have to, and where our kids are working out in a half an hour in the mall.
What was it like to be able to get that wrestling room? It's such a special place when you finally got it done. How cool is it to have it now?
Oh my gosh, you're talking 20 some years ago. I would go outside, and they had an old tennis court. It was a big giant tennis bubble, and they tore the bubble down and poured the concrete. And I would go out every day and take pictures and stand in there and think, oh, this is going to be unbelievable. And of course, 20 some years later, all of a sudden, it's like, it's not good enough. I mean, you got Michigan coming in and usurping our mantle for the best facility. And then, you've got everybody and their brother has a new wrestling room. So we can't be second to anybody. So we did our expansion. I was so excited about it, having the kickoff and the first match there. And we have to wait a whole another year. So I'm sitting here. Fortunately, I'm allowed to come into my office, walk around the empty halls.
How big is it there? I see 3 mats at least. Is there more on the other side there?
Well, that's the same. This is the Friedman Center. That's actually an old picture. It's they really did a back expansion on the back, and we added a whole another wrestling room, about a mat and a half in the back, full weight room. Our training room has we added a hydrotherapy in the weight room in the training room. We have our weight room doubled. We've got a players lounge and players a little cafe area. Our locker room is tripled. I mean, it's not just the spaces, because the spaces have gotten a little bit larger. But what we did with the spaces when people come in, I always use the analogy. I sound like a broken record. What we wanted was when someone would walk in to have the same experience or the same feeling that they would get if they go to a high level football program and feel that kind of, I hate to use the word opulence because I don't want to get people upset with me, but to some degree, that's what we're looking for.
How'd you take the news that Ivy League schools aren't going to participate in winter sports?
I got to tell you, I knew it was coming, so I was prepared, and I tried to prepare the kids for it about 2 weeks in advance. You could just read the tea leaves. Our presidents don't have a lot of stomach for risk, even if they talk about following the science, and the science would indicate that athletic events are not super spreaders, or not. If you look at some of the case studies that have been done, the European Soccer League, Wisconsin High School Federation did extensive study and found that there was really no correlation to athletic competition and coronavirus spread. Certainly, the teams are more prevalent because they live together, they shower together, they do everything together. I'm not saying that there's not a greater opportunity, but you're not changing that if you still let the kids live in the same apartments and go about the same activities. So I was extremely disappointed that not our athletic administration, but our upper level administration didn't feel like it was worth the I don't know what's the time and effort to figure a way of doing it.
You have a outstanding team coming in. What do you do to keep them motivated?
So we're scheduling a season around it. If they can't do it, we'll do it ourselves. So we have got thank God for the clubs and RTCs. We'll take a Southern tour. We'll wrestle. We've got 2 matches lined up already with Virginia Tech RTC and UNC RTC. Hope to get NC State's RTC. We're going to wrestle Columbia and Princeton and Rutgers and hopefully Penn State. So we're going to be able to do a full season. So we were able to do it without the billions of dollars of resources. You think you'd be able to do it with them.
Arno Neiman, one of your benefactors and someone that contributes in the program, has said that Rob Koll will keep going until he wins an NCAA team championship. How true is that?
I don't know. It depends on what, I think we've got the cast of characters to win it sooner than later. So I don't think that means I have to be here until I'm 85 years old. But, I don't feel old. I mean, geez, Louise, I still think I'm one of the young and up and coming coaches in this sport. I don't know what people are talking about. And I can still wrestle, not very well, but, but I can still do it. And so I don't, I'm not in any rush, to push me out the door. And I'm sure when I do leave, I'm going to be involved. I just can't imagine, when you work with, if you work with Jack Spates, when you start off with Jack Spates and you're working literally every waking hour of the day, you take over that mentality. I think if you stop, you probably die, and at least I would. So I've got to keep going, keep moving.
Do you have outlets outside of wrestling?
What does that mean, outside of wrestling? There is no life outside of wrestling. My wife would say no. No, I mean, I love it. Hey, I haven't gotten tired of it yet. People will say, "Oh, you've got to have balance in your life." I'm like, I don't understand that. I mean, I think you got to have enjoyment in life, and if you enjoy it, and why should I have to go hiking? It's not what I want to do. I do like, maybe I'll go fishing a little bit, but honestly, I enjoy it. And, people always tell me what I need to do. They're not very happy, and I am. So, yeah, I'll keep at it till I die. And I'll as long as I can be around it. And it's not just the sport itself; it's the personalities. We went down to the RTC Cup, and it's just a hoot. You're driving down with a bunch of guys from Cornell, and you add a few mercenaries, and it's just it's just an interesting dichotomy of personalities, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
When you talk about this RTC tour, how does that work for you to just keep them, as we talk about the motivation piece, to keep them thinking about the college season as the end game?
Well, I'm just trying to give them a great experience is what I'm really worried about. I'm not worried about the college end game. These kids came here to have, wrestling we've got some guys, Vitos and Yannis, they came here to make an Olympic team, and you've got others who want to have wrestling as part of their experience, and I'm going to make sure they have a great experience. And one thing, talking about my father, I remember my father going and taking Penn State on trips, and he would go to events where across the country based on the restaurants he liked, what I mean, or or Civil War battlefields. Those are the kinds of things we're going to be doing on this trip. It's not just going to be, it will be a lot of wrestling, but we're going to make sure we have, because there's no school. We don't have to go back to school till February 10th. We've got nothing but time on our hands. And so I want to make sure this is a really memorable experience, because if you can't be competing against, for a national championship, we're going to make sure that they're having some great competition, but also, building some experiences they can talk about for the rest of their life. And it won't be, hopefully we can create some memories that will be really positive, as opposed to what we're dealing with right now.
Do you try to guide the team chemistry? Or you just let it come to wherever it's going to be?
I mean, we guide the the team chemistry by who we bring in and the personalities we're putting in the room. I've got some very eclectic group of kids. You've got Yanni, you got Vito and Yanni now, because it's Yanni who. Vito's our hot chick now, and Yanni's his sidekick. But you've also got Gabe Dean and Nishan Garrett. He's one of ours, even though he's not wrestling for us now. He's wrestling it for down at Virginia Tech, RTC, and of course now Gabe Dean. So I think we've got some of the most I know we have some of the most prolific athletes in the sport right now in the United States. And for a little school like Cornell, especially from where we came, when I talk about Jack Spates when he took over the program. I didn't know anything about Cornell other than they wrestled against in the Penn State Invitational years when I was in 10th grade, 10 years old. And I remember asking Jack, I said, are we any good? It's like, no, but we're going to be. So to come from those early moments to where we are now, where we have 4 legitimate Olympic contenders, and people can say, well, he's not a top 2 or 3. Hey, if you're in the top 4, you're an Olympic contender, and to have 4 or 5 guys like that is really what I'm most proud of, as far as building something that's permanent and, you know, building a legacy of Cornell wrestling. It's not just the national championships now. It's, can we win? We've won two world, you know, Kyle's won 2 world championships. Now let's get some Olympic gold medals. And when I say Olympic gold medals, I mean plural.
What's the difference between how you recruit back then and nobody knowing about Cornell and what it's like now?
Well, it was really hard to recruit in Iowa back then because people thought we were the Division III school, and no kidding. And so when your first 10 minutes of a conversation is spent convincing someone that you are indeed a Division I program, you know, it's an uphill battle, you know, because then a Penn State or an Iowa or Minnesota or whoever calls them, you don't have to convince them that you can wrestle and be a national champion at Cornell. The financial aid has been a huge advantage now. In the early days, they started off with a $4,500 to $6,000 loan right off the top, and with in inflationary dollars, that's probably more like $10,000. We've been able to reduce the loan burden, and that's allowed us to get into an entirely different demographic population. You know, you look at Princeton; they're doing a nice job, and periodically, the other Ivy Leagues, I think you'll see Columbia and Brown making a resurgence. Harvard's building a new room. You know, they have other issues with admissions. You know, whether they can get good kids in to develop that type of depth. Because in wrestling, you know, you have 2 or 3 good kids, but everyone else gets. You know, if you have 12 kids, you know damn well at any given day you're going to have 4 of them hurt. So it's hard. You're swimming upstream, and you also need those bodies in there. And that's one of the advantages we have. We're the largest of the Ivy League schools. We have a little bit more flexibility as far as the numbers of kids in the room. I doubt Harvard has ever had a walk-on. You know, we've had some kids who are pretty good and who will be able to get in just because of the sheer numbers of the school. And you know, 1 or 2 kids every 4 years, it does make a difference.
Speak to that. I think Ivy League schools, they can't have athletic scholarships. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's all aid based on need, but you know, I'm not crying over, you know, over what we don't have. I mean, we can dig in, we can find kids who are poor enough to afford Cornell, and we have plenty of kids who are full scholarship kids who full scholarship athletes who turn down scholarships to come to Cornell and pay the full freight. I know I spent both my kids to Cornell, and I paid quite a bit. Gabe Dean paid quite a bit. Kyle Dake paid quite a bit. People don't believe me. They say, "Oh, it's not true." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm telling you, it is." And we have the same academic standards that all the other Ivy League schools do. And people don't believe me that either. They're like, "Oh, you get anybody." I'm like, "No, we can't. It takes the same to get into Cornell as it does to Harvard." The difference is the schools choose to prioritize which sports they're going to give those lower band admissions bands to. And in wrestling, we're a high priority. You know, some other schools, they don't prioritize it as much. And so they might not get the lower band kids like we are. And certainly, you know, I'm blessed to have an athletic director who really cares, and an administration that cares about the sport. So we get a little more support, but there is a threshold that you can't go below. And once again, people don't believe me. I'm saying, I'm telling you, it's the truth. You know, you look at some of these other sports, and at Cornell, you've got hockey and wrestling and lacrosse are 3 of sports that they've said, "Hey, we want to win in these sports," and they get a little bit more administrative support. There's other sports that perhaps don't. Swimming, for instance, you know, I love the swim coach, and they've got a great program. They've got a nice program, but the pool is terrible, and there's some real limitations, and I don't think they want to dump a ton of money into something that or administrative support, or should I say admissions support, when they're probably not going to be able to get the top kids anyway. So you know, you're not kind of swimming upstream to, you know, no pun intended.
What would that mean to Cornell to win an NCAA team championship in wrestling?
I don't know what it means to the school so much as what it means to the alumni. You know, we've got a storied history of wrestling here. It goes back over 100 years. It's the oldest continuous sport of any collegiate team in the country. Columbia started earlier, but then they discontinued for a year. We go back to way back 1909. I've got pictures of the team. So, you know, and our success was built, you know, on generosity of these people. Certainly not from 1909, but more recently. Said when one of the things I always tell people I'm most proud of, when we go to the national championships, you see this great fan base of Cornell with the giant C's on their chest, and you don't have that anywhere other than on the East Coast other than at Penn State.
Tell us about this mall that you were talking about where the wrestling room is, or your wrestling facility now.
Yeah, well, we've been, we're wandering the desert looking for a homeland. We've been at 3 different locations now, and they keep finding. And we started off in Kyle's garage, and that we could have about 2 people in there. Then we found a ballroom in a hotel, and that hotel closed. And then we went over to a larger warehouse, which was actually nice. It doesn't sound that nice, but it had a nice radiant heated floor. And then they found a guy who wanted to lease it out for 2 years, and God forbid we're here for 2 years. So I didn't want to commit for 2 years, and so I finally went over to the mall. Which, if you've been to any mall in the United States, you feel like it's in a zombie apocalypse. So I said, there's got to be some open spots. And they gave us a bounce house area. They used to have a bounce house, which is not a great place to invest right now. So it's actually a large location, and we put up paper so people aren't bugging us and asking if they can sign up. But you can't fill the place up. You have to have we have about 10 kids per session. So fortunately, right now it's during finals, so we don't have a lot of kids coming in anyway. But we've been running 2 or 3 practices a day to get the kids in, and it is labor intensive because you can't have 30 kids in that room. But it's better than nothing, and it's not a bad little room, and the rent's not too bad. So
you don't
we do what we got to do. Pardon?
You get a few people wanting to watch though, come in and watch practice.
Yeah, and I just would rather not have people watching and banging on the windows and wanting to sign up, but we do all the protocols, and we do everything we can do, and we've been very fortunate as far as outbreaks. We have had, like everybody else, we've had a couple here and there. Unfortunately, we had a couple. Timing wasn't great, 2 weeks ago, but so we lost a couple for our RTC Cup, but everyone's healthy now, and it's knock on wood, we should be we won't have any more.